Getting very close. So this end of the axe is getting really close to fitting. What I'm just doing here is just looking for any spots that I can't see any light coming through. That's obviously where it's tight. And just shaving a little, check, shave a little, check, until I can get this thing just kind of squeezing on there. I'm not going to worry about fitting it right down tight yet because the rest of the handle's got some shaping to do, but I just want to know that it's going to be really close right now. Important to do this step pretty slowly because you don't want to take off too much. It's really tough to put material back on, so it's important you just go slow and steady. Keep checking. You can keep seeing just little bits I want to take off. I can definitely see areas I don't want to take any more off of, which is equally as important. Also, every once in a while I'm sighting straight down the axe all the way to the butt end of the handle, just to make sure that I'm not twisting or anything. I want this thing to be deadly straight. So also making sure that I'm always orienting the axe the same way, putting the already sort of tuned up side in the same direction each time, because the eye is not exactly symmetrical both ways. So that would get really frustrating. So now that we've got it to a point where I can get a little bit on there, I'm getting on maybe very little, 3/8 of an inch, maybe close to 1/2 inch. That's going to be good enough for right now. Like I say, that's all that I want to accomplish at this stage. Later on, you'll be able to see parts of this will rub on the inside of the axe eye and leave that little bit of browning, that little bit of rust coloration on there, and so that's a really good indication of where more material needs to be lost, and that'll come into play a lot more as we work down the axe and work the head on until we finally rest on the shoulder down here. But for now, I like where that's at. I'm going to continue shaping more of the handle, get it kind of the same point here where it's all smoothed out, ready to basically hand sand to finish, and then we'll start to work on this guy. So far so good, pretty smooth. Slight taper right here into the handle, just to narrow that up a little bit. Fawn's foot is huge. I'm going to be bringing this down quite a lot, but the rest of it feels excellent. Right on, there you have it. Handle is ready. Basically, it's up to the point where I could sand it and hit it with some linseed oil, and she'd be all done. I took a lot of material off the fawn's foot, as you can tell. It was way too big. It didn't match the handle at all. You don't need that much for a butt there. Those of you with really keen eyes will notice I extended this the taper in the handle section up the shaft quite a lot, just because I took a quick practice swing at this thing, and I realized that when your forward hand comes down to meet your lower hand, it was way too burly, way too much material still. So I tapered it down. Now it feels like swinging a baseball bat, basically. So it's not perfect, and it's not going to be, but that's kind of the point. You know, it's handmade, and if I really wanted to, I could even just leave it how it is, not bother sanding it anymore, and just letting kind of the work and your hands do the smoothing out for you, and it would be totally fine. But you know, it's tough to do when you got a whole box of sandpaper right there, and it wouldn't take much, and it would just be a nicer finished product in the end. And that's really what it's all about. You know, it's tough to spend hours doing this when I've got perfectly good, you know, $17 hickory axe handle right behind me, which takes 5 minutes to buy from the store and hang it in a few minutes and it's done. But there's something about taking a tool that you have made and handing it to someone who you know will appreciate it. There's a lot of satisfaction in that, and just knowing, you know, that every time I pick this up, because it's going to be built to be used, I'm not just going to hang this on a wall. Every time I pick it up to use it for years to come, I'm going to know that I made it, and it's going to make me feel good. Next thing I'm going to be doing is tuning up the other edge of the axe head. The reason I'm doing this step now instead of finishing up the handle in terms of getting the head to fit on the end of it is that I don't want to get really close to fitting the axe head onto the handle and then and having to stop and just get to this step first and then go back and fit it back on afterwards. I'd rather have this thing ready to go, get fitting it, because I know that once I'm really close, I'm just going to want to get it done and see the finished product. So I'm going to do this part now, get this thing tuned up and get this step over with, and then we can get to hanging it and rock and roll. So no surprises here. I've got a whole other video on grinding on the whetstone. So this is just going to be the same old deal. I'm just going to slowly work down, clean up all these nicks on the edge, work from both sides, try to keep it really even, just like this one's very even ground, and yeah, just go slow and try to enjoy it. It's going to be a little while. And I love this wheel. And I think the biggest thing is because it teaches you patience. Because you have no choice. It's not going to go any faster. And it takes a long time. But, you know, I think it helps because, like I said before, you can really zone out. Your mind just wanders to all sorts of different things, and I think it's really good for you to do that sometimes. But you know, I think that learning a little bit of patience is definitely beneficial, because I'm part of a generation that grew up on everything being instant, you know, microwaves and drive-throughs and whatever. Everything is, anytime you want something, you should be able to just have it, and that's a weird mentality, you know. So I'm definitely guilty of that too. I'm sitting here thinking, man, I wish my grinder wasn't broken so I could just stick this on the belt and have it done, you know, in 10 minutes. But you know, it's good to learn a little bit of patience and do things slowly, take your time, and like I say, it's good to kind of let your mind do nothing for a little while. It's interesting to see what it'll do when it's got nothing else to do. So these double bit axes, a lot of people associate them with like big Viking war axes, or like a throwing axe or something. But where they're far more common is in the woods, because as you might imagine, they're two axes in one. Both sides of a proper double bit are actually ground differently. One side is really really sharp and is used to cut through wood really deep, like to fall a tree, or even to do some carving. And the other side is a little more blunt, which is stronger and less likely to chip or get damaged, and it's used to do things a little more rough, like chopping at roots or anything like near the ground where it might get damaged. So so then if it does get damaged, you still have your other edge, which is your sharp, fine edge, which is safe on the other side of the axe. On a lot of the high quality ones, the sharp edge will actually be a longer bit. The handle will actually be offset in the head of the axe, so the blunter side will be shorter, and the opposite is true with the other side of the axe. A lot of guys would mark one side or the other so that we could just pick up their axe and know right away visually which side was which, because after a bunch of use it kind of gets tough to kind of see which edge of your axe is the sharp edge and which is the blunt side. So this axe didn't really have that geometry. Both sides were very similar. So on the other side, when I was sharpening this a while ago, when I first started working on this thing, I ground the other end to the very sharp pointed side, and this one's going to be the blunt side, which is nice because it means a lot less grinding for me right now, and the other side's already done. How about that? A little better, eh? So you can see here, pretty blunt edge, especially compared to that one, which is much sharper. On to finishing up the handle, I guess.